start again. Okay, so tonight is the 16th of September 2021. The class is on meditating on boundaries, contemplating boundaries. I thank you for listening in live, and if you're listening to a recording, thanks very much for doing that too. I hope you enjoy this. So why bother with boundaries? Again, it's one of those that's sort of self-evident, really, isn't it? If we don't have personal boundaries, then how do we expect to be able to keep a calm mind, create conditions in meditation? Purely from a meditation point of view, it's essential to have boundaries, good boundaries, healthy boundaries. Obviously, it is in everyday life, and the two are inseparable. So there are lots and lots of benefits to having good, healthy boundaries. We don't start off with boundaries when we're born, do we? We get our nappies changed by someone else, so we have no physical boundaries. We have no idea what social boundaries are when we're a little one. Run around with nothing on and play about. We have no self-consciousness. Not even sure that we have self-awareness, to be honest, until a certain point. You may have seen babies in cots sort of wondering what the hell all this is. I'm not sure to what degree there is self-awareness. I'm not a psychologist, sociologist for that sort of thing. But I've watched children do that, babies. Obviously, we don't have economic boundaries at a certain age. We don't have pocket money right from being born. Sexual boundaries come in at a certain age. We start to explore that, but we don't initially. There's the exploring of personal space at a certain age, and at first we don't have that. And we have spiritual boundaries, which we don't have at first, which we can explore: religious, philosophical, spiritual boundaries. And with property boundaries, it's not just, our boundaries are not just about us, are they? They're about our stuff. Somebody can't just walk off with my glasses case because it's mine. So there's a boundary there. So we have property boundaries. And we may or may not have reflected on them. And we can't just do it once, because it doesn't serve us to just do it once at one point in our life, because we change, our circumstances change, our property changes. What's important to us may change. So reflecting and contemplating and choosing our boundaries over and over again through life is, I would say, essential to a healthy life. And we even have boundaries within ourselves, don't we? We have boundaries where there are things that we just won't look at in our mind, or won't consider in our past, or won't even consider about our future. Perhaps death and what happens after death, perhaps traumatic experiences in our past, perhaps feelings we're feeling in the moment that are just too much for us, or too unpleasant, or too pleasant. If we have a lot of self guilt or whatever, and we don't feel we have the right to feel positive emotions, we may set boundaries where we say it's not okay for me to be happy. So we have lots and lots of boundaries, and whether we contemplate them consciously or not, they're there. And the absence of boundaries, whether we contemplate them or not, are there. For obvious reasons. People push our boundaries. People drive too close to the back of our car. People want to steal our property. People may get too close to our personal space, makes us feel uncomfortable. So we have to manage our boundaries carefully. And an analogy that I read about it's not mine, I came across this and I think it's a really good one, is we don't just have no door on our house. When I turned my computer back on to get into Zoom, there was a screensaver of Machu Picchu, however it's called, and it struck me that that was a boundary. You know, they were looking at, they'd gone to extreme lengths, beautifully extreme lengths, profound extreme lengths to be safe, to feel that they were safe where they were, and they lived atop a mountaintop, flat mountaintop. Presumably, they slept a lot better, but it came at a cost. So there's always pros and cons to boundaries. So it must have been a hell of a job getting all the stuff up to the top of Machu Picchu, and you run out of milk or you run out of flour or, you know, whatever their foodstuffs were. You couldn't just pop down the corner shop at Machu Picchu. Sort of had a bit of a conundrum. Presumably, you went next door and borrowed a cup of sugar, you know, sort of thing. But they created a boundary there. They created a privacy and a social and a safety boundary there. Equally, if we have so, you know, one of the downsides to that may be that there isn't social interaction in a street, in, you know, in that place atop a mountain that there might be in a valley bottom with fertile land and lots of boats coming past and interactions. So there's, you know, there's pros and cons. In our own house, if we have it like a prison, 16 bolts on the doors and tripwires around it and whatever else, then yeah, we're safe. But we've compromised, I'd suggest we've compromised peace of mind there, because we feel like we're in a siege kind of situation, siege mentality. And so we have to be playful. Is that the right word? Playful, flexible with our boundaries. And actually, we can look very positively about boundary setting. We can feel very positive and enjoy contemplating and setting boundaries, because they can make such a difference to our lives. It may not be obvious what boundaries we have, and it may be even less obvious what boundaries we don't have. The reason it may not be obvious is because we tend to pick up our boundaries from osmosis, from our parents, our caregivers, those in authority over us, mainly parents, maybe teachers, maybe friends. But we're setting our boundaries and learning our boundaries at an age where we don't reflect on them very much. If our parents have poor boundaries that don't serve them and us well, then there's a good chance that we bring that into our own adult life, and it may affect our peace of mind a lot. It may affect the way people treat us, the way we allow people to treat us. It may affect our financial circumstances. It may affect our sexual circumstances. It may affect our privacy circumstances, even on our computers. You know, the degree to which we set up firewalls or not, the kind of passwords we have, you know, our relationship with boundaries. With friends, you know, where's the line with a friend? Where is the line not? Can somebody just rock up at your house at 8 o'clock at night, press on the buzzer and say, oh, it's just popping past? And they sort of anticipate you're going to say, come on in for a coffee. Is that a real no-no? Is it a faux pas? Is it gloriously relaxed? Is it what their parents did? Is it what your parents did? We're boundaries in our health. We're boundaries with doctors and nurses. And as we get old, maybe our boundaries change with our caregivers. Maybe once upon a time, it wasn't okay for when we were little, maybe, you know, have our bum wiped by someone, didn't bat an eyelid. And then the last thing we want at a certain age is to have somebody else wipe our bum. And then when we get old, very old, or maybe in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 20s, 60s, we have an accident and people have to care for us intimately, and therefore those boundaries change. If you struggle in some relationships, you struggle in certain circumstances, and it affects your meditation practice, because if our mind is stirred up before we meditate, it's a hell of a lot harder. Then we can look very carefully at our boundaries, and it can allow us to be in a better state of mind when we come to meditate. It can allow us to have more peace during the week. Now, when people become estranged from family members or friends, then sometimes that's a very skillful practice of self-care. Often to the external world, there's pity comes to us with that. Oh, that's awful. Sometimes things are not how we would choose them, but sometimes cutting loose temporarily or permanently certain people in our lives can be a very, very skillful, healthy choice. Pros and cons. Not everything comes with no downside. Equally, getting people back in our lives who had sort of drifted away might be a beautiful thing. We might change that boundary. We might test the water. I think, oh, I'll give that person a chance again. I'll warm that relationship up. Maybe I'll give them a call, because other people's boundaries change, or not. So we can be careful. So we can be skillful, and maybe consider relationships that have waned in the past. Maybe they're there to be warmed up again, maybe not. But I'll leave you with that one as a little snippet to reflect on in the coming days. Are there people whose relationships have waned a bit, and maybe they've waned for good reason, your side or theirs? But maybe it's because you changed your boundary, or they changed theirs. And maybe all that's here now is an opportunity to resurrect a relationship based on changed boundaries. Boundaries with phones. Boundaries with phones. We have boundaries, don't we, with phones? Or we don't. Who do you allow to ring you at what time? Do they know? Do you answer? Through our actions, we tell people what's acceptable. Through our actions, we tell people what they can do with us, to us. So if we take a work call at 8 p.m, we're training people. We're training people that it's okay. We don't have a boundary about our phones late at night. Boundaries with meditating. I've always kept quite light about that. If I felt that this room is my meditation room and no one should come in, then if it's too strict with children, then I think it sends out the wrong message. It's just my view on this. People may be different, but children aren't capable of understanding certain boundaries at certain ages. So I think it's skillful, in my opinion, to be light about boundaries with little ones when we're meditating. If we're at somebody else's house and we try and meditate, or in our own house, and there's children about, then I personally think it's really quite nice for somebody to come in a room and see that you're sitting peacefully, and that they can be within that space and you're still peaceful. If somebody comes in your meditation room and it destroys your peace, there wasn't much peace there. There wasn't much, but we're fooling ourselves. There was peace there if they can come in and we get irritated about somebody coming into our meditation space. Okay, so we're going to do some meditation. We're going to do some body relaxation and breathing meditation. And I'll weave in a bit of boundaries within this as well. And then we'll do a meditation on exploring, contemplating, reflecting on our own boundaries, setting a commitment to our boundaries and a determination to look at them and treat them lightly, but importantly, and look at them for today, tomorrow, and the future. Okay. Okay, so please bring your awareness to the room that you're in and to your body. And our body appears to us through contact, through skin mainly. Our body appears to us mainly through skin, the tongue, contact, pressure, maybe some feeling in muscles and organs a bit. We certainly, if we check, we don't feel our bone marrow, do we? Or the mushiness in our brain. Might feel nerves sometimes, that's very painful, but not the norm, hopefully. I do hope it's not. In terms of boundaries, become aware of the space just outside of your skin, this personal space. Sit in meditation and become aware of personal space. I mean, we call it personal space, but it's not, is it? Because we move through space. We don't move around with a chunk of space around us. So we're talking about distance apart. I'd like you to imagine people moving closer. If this is comfortable anyway. If it's not, if it freaks you out, I don't need to do it. But, just imagine people a certain distance away and how you feel. Imagine them and get a gauge for where your personal distance is. Is it an exact distance? Is it a general buffer zone? Is it sort of closer than you might have considered or further away? Just imagine people at different distances, moving closer and further away. And I'd like to ask you now to contemplate why. Why, when somebody becomes a certain distance away from you, is it not pleasant? Imagine people maybe face to face too close, behind you too close, side on too close. Then consider why in those individual circumstances. Is it the same all the time? If you're on an aeroplane, back in the good old days when we were allowed on them, or on tubes or trains, in cars, then we're almost touching, aren't we? There are circumstances where we're almost touching people. Are you comfortable in those situations? Are you more comfortable in those situations? And why? Why be more comfortable in those situations than the ones we did a few moments ago? So I know it sounds like a very dry thing to say, but effectively boundaries are a risk assessment. And when we say yes to one thing, we say no to another. And when we say no to one thing, we say yes to another. So whatever we choose to do in terms of our boundaries, there are benefits and drawbacks, pros and cons, yeses and no. Please bring your awareness now to your thoughts. Allow thoughts to come and allow them to go. Watch them. Do you have boundaries about what thoughts you allow yourself to experience? Are there thoughts in your mind that are too dark for you to allow them to come up? Maybe things that you'd be ashamed to admit you're capable of, we are capable of. Do we have boundaries, therefore, in terms of our thoughts? And are we comfortable with them? Do they serve us well? Now we're going to bring our awareness to feelings. Notice your feelings. Notice what's here. Become aware of them and just rest with them for a little bit. If your mind wanders away, come back. So if you allow anger, if you have a boundary where you allow anger to come up, then there is the responsibility for self-management to speak and act in ways that don't come from the anger. If we repress and suppress the anger, then where's it gone and what problems maybe that be causing us in the future? So I think one of the most important boundaries we can have is the boundaries around our anger. If we have too tight boundaries around anger coming up, maybe we get ill, maybe we suppress and repress, maybe it flashes out sometimes and frightens us and others. If we have too loose a boundary with our anger, then our anger can hurt ourselves and hurt others. So what's your current boundary with your anger? Where does it lie? What is it? I'll leave you to contemplate this for a few moments. In very practical terms, not what you think your boundary is, but what is the evidence from the past to say what's your relationship with your anger? It might not be easy to answer this one. We can let our anger have free rein. We can be scared of our anger and therefore repress and suppress it. Repressing is subconsciously doing it, not consciously doing it, and suppression is consciously choosing to just push it away. Do we have anxiety and stress and digestive problems and things like that? Could that come from our relationship with our anger? And is there an opportunity to explore changing the relationship with our anger to possibly improve our physical and mental health? Our ability to sleep at night and relax during the day and focus. And I think our relationship, our boundary with our own anger informs many of our other boundaries. So we've met with our body and our thoughts and our feelings. When we relax the body, we just need to be aware at the moment that we perceive an inner world and an outer world. The boundary being the skin, a soft zone of distance around it where we have personal space. We have our objects that we own or rent or whatever. We have a boundary of space there. We have the internal space. So become aware again, generally of the body. We're going to relax it. Bring your awareness to your face, to the jaw muscles. Let your jaw muscles relax deeply. Imagine there are no problems, nothing to do, nothing to be, nothing to achieve. Right now, just completely focused on relaxing. Relax the jaw muscles, but make sure your mind doesn't go dull or you'll lose your awareness of what's happening. Relax the space around the eyes, the lips, the cheeks, the brow. We're places where we connect to the world spiritually, crown of the head, third eye, throat, chest, heart, abdomen. If we have boundaries that are too open in terms of sensitivity to others, they may overwhelm us. If we don't have enough sensitivity to others, we may lack consideration and kindness. We can protect ourselves and be kind by tweaking this and considering it. We'll come back to this one later on. Bring awareness now to your left shoulder. Scan all the way down your arm. Any tension or tightness you feel in your arm, your hands, fingers, relax it off. Same now from the right shoulder all the way down. And the same from the left hip, scanning down. And from the right hip, same exercise, thigh, calf, feet and toes. Bringing our awareness now to our shoulders and our neck. Imagine warm sunshine beating down on the muscles and the tendons and ligaments. Relax them off. Let your arms rest under their own weight and just relax your shoulders and neck. Before we do the black breathing, which we do each week, we're just going to change it slightly for this week. So bring your awareness back into your head. Do we have a boundary with the creative mind? Do we have a boundary with imagination? Does it change over time? Please imagine that your imagination is boundaryless now. Just allow any image or images to come into your mind, unabashed, uncensored. Play around in this imaginative space, because I think our imagination can easily shrink with age due to pressures and all the rest of it. So just for the next minute, keep relaxed, keep your mind on your imagination, and just allow whatever thoughts, images, sounds to be played around with in your head. Have fun. Maybe this is how our imagination was when we were a child. Free and fun, or free and scary. Ghosts under the, monsters under the bed, joy of adventures. So maybe in this class, one of the things we can take away, if we choose to, is to reconnect with our unfettered imagination, blank slate, play with what comes up, like we did as a child. We can have this in our life again as adults. want to set boundaries around that within us, we can. Now, bring your awareness back to your body and imagine black smoke swirling around inside of your body cavity. And bound up in this black smoke is lack of awareness of boundaries. Just day to day, we forget to do it often. Imagine that that's bound up in the black smoke, and as we breathe out, 3 nice, steady, deep out breaths, we visualize the black smoke and this forgetfulness of boundaries to leave us, to come out of our nostrils into the far distance. And after the third out breath, imagine all of the forgetfulness of boundaries has gone, that we are in a space where everything's up for grabs. We can enjoy creating our future in a way that are skillful, enjoyable boundaries, that relieves burdens and pressures and fears and worries and chaos. Unless you want chaos. Now, as we breathe in sparkling golden light, imagine you're breathing in sparkling golden light. That has the power to still and relax the mind. Imagine imbued in this sparkling golden light is fun and lightness around reconsidering our boundaries in a really healthy, good, fun way, positive way. As you breathe in sparkling golden light, imagine you're breathing in skill and wisdom around boundaries. Imagine your body and your mind start to fill up with this sparkling golden light, touching your head, your hands, your feet, your torso, the space around you. Imagine it's bathed in the skill and wisdom of healthy, good boundaries with flexibility. Now, as you breathe in, follow the breath in, all the way down, follow the breath out again. Breathe easy, knowing that you're reconsidering your boundaries for a healthy life. Breathe in and breathe out. Bringing your awareness now into your nostril linings. Notice it's cool as you breathe in and it's warmer as you breathe out. We're practicing a boundary right now of shutting everything else out and just allowing ourselves to practice peace. Meditative concentration brings peace. Breathing in, we notice it's cooler. Breathing out, it's warmer. Beautiful thing to set a boundary, to have some peacemaking in our life. Feel happy about this. practice the concentration. Finally, bring your awareness to the very rims of your nostrils. And relax as you breathe in and breathe out, and observe the cool and warm sensations at the rims of the nostrils. Have a relaxed body and alert, relaxed mind. Now our mind is calm, calmer. It's more able to contemplate, to consider, to reflect, to investigate. So we're going to spend the next 5 minutes of the class just considering boundaries. I'd like you to reflect on the boundaries that you saw in your caregivers, in your guardians, your parents, whoever it is, when you were growing up. What boundaries you saw that they kept well. And now consider what boundaries they didn't keep. In retrospect now, as an adult, looking back, what boundaries did they have that were not healthy, or what boundaries did they not have? Where were boundaries a problem when you were growing up? I'd like to now reflect on your life and consider the examples that you were set. Where did that show up, if anywhere? Where did that show up? Where does it show up in your life? The good, the neutral, the not healthy. So maybe start with one. Where does the good, whether they're your parents, your caregivers, good boundaries, where do they show up in your life, and where have they done and served you well in your life? You consider, where do they play out in your social life, your working life, family life, to benefit you and others. Now consider where there were boundaries that were poor, unhealthy, lacking, in the people who set an example to you, the adults in your life. And check if and where they show up or have shown up in your personal life, social life, work life, sex life, financial life. Allow your mind to be relaxed and open and honest. And just do a little check. Those boundaries that your parents didn't set, that you've spotted, where did they show up in your life? If you've adopted them. And from this, in a very positive, happy, uplifting kind of approach, what boundary are you going to tweak, change, create, have, that will make an important impact on your life and others? So we can start to feel the determination, the commitment to have things easier, have things better through boundaries. What boundary do you need to put in place and choose to put in place to improve your life? When we do this exercise, we may feel a bit of resistance. We may feel enthralled, motivated. Notice how you feel. If you feel a bit of reticence, then that's natural. Sometimes that's natural, but we can just accept that and just carry on. Commit to making that change, playing around with it, because we can always just adapt it and change. Maybe it's not quite right, we can tweak it. Maybe next week it doesn't work so well, or we can play around with it. But working at something in general terms in our life where we can set up a boundary that's going to make a difference, an improvement. Just because we're meditators, we can sit with the determination, the commitment. So allow that to be here in a light way, and just sit with the feeling of commitment to this. If your mind wanders away, come back to the feeling of commitment. Positive, light mind. before we come out of meditation, we can dedicate the peace and the contemplation and the determination to improve our boundaries and to reflect on them again in the future as need be, to our own welfare and to the welfare of all living beings. And then when it feels comfortable, just gently allow your eyes to open. There's no rush. Thank you. So if you don't already, if you'd like to sign up to remind us for these classes, if you want to do that, you'll find the opportunity on the front page of my website, www.paulfollows.com. And there are also meditations like these from me on YouTube on my channel, Paul Follows Meditation. Hope you've enjoyed this and enjoy setting improved boundaries.